Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Sinner. So, some interesting things went down in this episode. Obviously, it started right from the very beginning. The episode literally picks up right where last week's episode ended, with her, decide, which way is she going to plead, and she pleads guilty. And what I thought was kind of interesting, that judge was like, are you sure about it? I'm like, that was kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting a judge to kind of be asking all these questions like, well, you've never really done anything before, and the fact is you're not letting your lawyer speak for you. Are you really sure this is the decision you want to make? And I was wondering why. I was like, I feel like in a normal system, they'd be like, oh, okay, boom, that's it. But I mean, maybe there's some leeway there anyway, but nevertheless, it's mainly because of Harry, because he got in contact earlier and made the judge realized that there's a lot more to this, that, she needs to be examined, by a professional to kind of see whether she's in the right state of mind to be, in a position to defend herself, whether or not, whether she's just like went a little crazy or whether there's more to it or something like that. She needs to be evaluated. So, which is kind of interesting because only one person, like his partner, Harry's partner, is the only one that really knows that he did that, because the others are kind of talking about like this kind of messes with them, the whole case a little bit, because now they might actually have to go to trial, and then they have to distinguish what motive actually was if they do take this to trial. They have to figure out why she did it, which works out for Harry because, like, for whatever weird reason, he needs to find out why, which will kind of get to that in a little bit. But I mean, obviously Harry starts doing some investigating and things just like start popping up in the investigation. He ends up talking to Frankie's girlfriend. Frankie ends up mentioning like there's some lady from his past that he knew. Basically, they had some kind of connection, but something was wrong with her. And so he got away from her before it ruined his life, something like that. But it was like 5 years ago. And Harry ended up talking to Cora, ended up being like, okay, you need to talk to me. You're putting your family in this very compromising position by you not talking to me and everything. So Cora explains everything. It's like, okay, she met up with this dude, got pregnant, her being Catholic and everything. She tried to kill herself because it's like, because dude lied and said his name was JD, and now she knows his name was Frankie. I mean, she found it out afterwards, but this all happened 5 years ago. But then what I really, because at first I was like, okay, like, it seemed like it's open and shut. She got revenge on a guy. He played that same song and it just pissed her off. Obviously, I'm like, okay, I don't buy that. But even Harry was kind of like, that he didn't buy it either. So start digging even further. Things start not matching up. I mean, first of all, you talk about Frankie's situation of like, he wasn't even there at the time. He was in LA for whatever, doing work. So I was like, okay, that's a lie. They ended up asking the lady at the bar or whatever, like she met up with JD, and it turns out like, no, she was there with a different guy. It wasn't Frankie. And there was also a lady, which then we see her flashing to it later on in the episode. It's the same blonde lady that kind of popped up a little bit in the first episode, and like, it's like she sees like that almost like ink blot like wall, and then she sees the blonde lady, and then the blonde lady was saying like, wake up, and now later on you see her going down the stairs talking about come on. So it's like, okay, whatever happened between her and this JD is associated with this woman too. Either she died or something, was killed, and it caused some like traumatic thing for I don't know. I mean, it seems like something went down with this JD dude that she didn't like, because it correlates with that whole thing, because we saw flashback of her and Mason. Like, Mason was going down on her, and then she was like, no, don't do that, like come up here, stay up here. And it's like, what? And then like the moment he started doing that, she started freaking out, and she kind of like had a reaction where her legs just kind of crossed on him, and he was like, what was that? And it was like she was almost choking him with her legs. She's like, I'm sorry, I don't know what it was. It's like, okay, something happened. At first I was thinking like, oh, maybe this has something to do with the baby, being pregnant and trying to kill herself. I mean, she being the one to survive and the baby didn't. So, because she was like, at the time, she was like, she couldn't tell her parents or whatever because of the whole Catholic thing. Her parents being super religious and everything. I get, the whole like having a baby out of wedlock type of thing. So, especially because it was a one-night stand plus all the, lies and stuff associated. But it's like, the question is, why did she lie about it being Frankie? I guess she felt like it would be easier because like, Harry keeps pushing her for an explanation. So I was like, why did you do it? And it's like, I guess for her, she just took a real life situation and applied it to this because she doesn't know why she did it. Something happened, something triggered inside of her. But I guess you could say like somebody took what happened to her and made it into like it sparked something in her head, like taking that memory, what happened. That's why when she attacked Frankie, she was like, hey, like, and told his girlfriend like, hey, don't worry, you're okay. He won't hurt you, essentially, like almost like she was protecting her. She didn't bring it up because I guess at the moment she was so caught up in it. But the friend at the time brought it up last episode, so it's kind of interesting she didn't bring it up. But once again, it's a crazy situation, so maybe she didn't catch it. But as we saw, like in the like recap, it's like we saw like when we saw like that memory being relived, we saw her looking at her. So it's like I think she caught it. Maybe I don't know why she didn't say anything. The biggest like craziness about the whole situation is that Harry actually played the music and it's like trying to understand, it's like, what is it? Does this song trigger you? And like we see the flashbacks and it looks like something's happened to her. It's like it's the sexual thing that went down, but it seems like the way she's acting, I'm thinking like there was no consent involved. And so because we know that same blonde woman that's in the like those memories and stuff like that is probably most likely the same blonde woman she was with at the bar. It's like, oh yeah, she was dancing with the lady, so I don't know. But the music definitely triggers her to the point she attacks Harry. But then Harry's looking at the marks on his body in the mirror and he calls his partner and he points it out. It's like, look how many times she attacked me. She attacked me 7 times. The same number of times she stabbed Frankie. And then look where the marks are. They're all in the same exact spots of the stab wounds from Frankie. She's doing it subconsciously. Whatever it is that's going on is pushing her to do it. And she doesn't even realize she was doing it just because of the music. The music is in fact the trigger. So it's like, still along the same lines of like somebody hypnotized her or something. To what extent and why? I mean, it's the situation of like it makes the perfect weapon because it's like, okay, you know, if you make it so, because especially because Cora in her own way for whatever reason isn't defending herself. It's like she's not giving up. I mean, I guess because honestly she can't really say like I don't remember, I don't know why I did it. She did, but more and more questions keep getting popped up, and she's even asking Mason later on. It's like, oh, how is our son doing? It's like he's not doing okay and I'm not doing okay. But it's just because even asking her, like, he asked her in the beginning of the episode, why are you doing this? What are you doing? And she just didn't really give an answer because I think for her, it's just, she even said it herself. She's like, I want this all to be over. And there was even a moment at the beginning, I skipped over, like, when she was talking to Mason's like, don't you might have some kind of life to return to. And she's like, what makes you think I want my life? And she had this look in her eyes, like, she was surprised that came out her mouth, like, that came out of nowhere. She's like, wait, what? Like, almost like, did I really just say that? And it's like, it legitimately caught her off guard, and I find that the most fascinating. So it's like, was that like a subconscious thing? Like, was that kind of more of a response to something else? You know, maybe like other aspect, because, you know, as we see with her childhood, I'll kind of get into that a little bit in a second, but like, with everything that kind of went with her growing up, maybe that's associated with why she doesn't like want her life. Maybe this part with Mason and her son is good, but it doesn't make up for all the crap in her life. That was another thing too. She lied about her parents being dead. Like, they're super alive. Other things came up too about the whole like baby situation of like, okay, you went to a hospital, but they checked and there was no records of her in any of the hospitals like around the area. They checked all of them. So there's that. And she's like, no, I went to someone else. I went to like the person who picked me up, picked me up. I went with them. They took care of me, and that's where I got my medical attention, you know? So it's like, I don't like, once again, like, why is she lying? I still believe the only reasoning for it is because no one would believe her otherwise, as she legitimately doesn't know. But kind of diving into that whole situation with her family, it gets even crazier because we see that the fact of the matter is the mom is, you see there's problems with the mom and the dad, Cora's mom and her dad, because her dad can't sleep in the same bed as them because I guess the mom keeps Phoebe very close. Phoebe's fragile and everything. The dad's just like, oh, let her sleep in her own room. Basically, she'll build, essentially like saying she'll toughen up. She needs to sleep on her own and then she'll toughen up. You can't just coddle her, but the mom, you know, pays a lot of attention to her. So like to the point that Cora's dad is, I guess, sleeping in the room with Cora. But what got my attention very much so, it's like, Cora was outside praying in the yard, and then immediately her mom came out there. She's like, oh yeah. She's like, oh, you're out here. You've been out here for like an hour. And then she said, Phoebe had to remind me you were out there. Caught that, was like, so you had to be reminded? I get, but just, I don't know. That tone just made me think like, it wasn't even like, because it's nighttime too. It's like you don't know where your kid is. Like I mean, I don't know, man. It seemed a little weird. I'm not trying to judge anyone, but it's just like the fact that she said that, like, oh, I had to be reminded you were out here. It's like that's pretty messed up. I mean, it already shows you just how almost like little she thinks of Cora, just because it's like she blames Cora for everything that Phoebe's going through. I mean, and even more so later on earlier in the episode, like, we met her aunt, and her aunt had given her some chocolate, and she was basically like, I'm going to pray for Phoebe in my own way. It's like, I don't know what that means. Like, I guess maybe that's trying to allude to the fact is that Cora's mom has like some like super like probably borderline fanatic beliefs and stuff like that, just kind of like out there. That her mom's just like, her aunt's like, I'll go pray for her in my own way. And it's like, here's this chocolate, eat it before your mom finds out. I was like, okay, so her mom's weird about her eating chocolate or something, to the point like Cora put the chocolate bar away as well as all this other stuff that she has hidden away. But her mom found out, and she was like, see, you can't be tempted, because, you know, you taking a bite out of that chocolate means that you don't want to give God any excuse not to listen to your prayers. I'm like, why is eating chocolate an issue? Like, how is that a sin? Especially later on, because she ends up making Cora apologize for it too. It's like, because I took the chocolate, not that I ate it, but because I took the chocolate from my aunt, I'm a sinner, and having to, like, it's like pushing her face closer to Phoebe. It's like, look at her and apologize. It's because you're a sinner that your sister isn't getting better. It's like, what the hell was with that family? Like, once again, it's like, where's the dad in this situation? Is he okay with this? It seems like he must be then, because it's like, why or what, you know? Once again, it's like, we already saw it in the first episode, and it seems we're getting more and more of it, just like outright blaming her. It's like, oh, this is all your fault. Oh, because you took that chocolate, now your sister's in. It's like, wow, are you serious, lady? She had her not only bury the chocolate in the backyard, but only other stuff that she was hiding. It looked like, I could have sworn part of it looked like it might have been, one thing looked like it might have been makeup, like lipstick or something. I might be remembering that wrong, but nevertheless, it was just a whole bunch of other random stuff. It wasn't anything bad, but it's like, is it a thing of like, she's not supposed to have anything materialistic or something like that? Like, what is the extent there? Like, I mean, maybe it's something in the Catholic religion I've never heard of. So, I mean, there's always a possibility for that. But even then, I'm like, even if I'm not that well versed in religion, I'm like, nah, that seems extreme. No matter what the case, that seemed like some extreme levels of just like, no. Almost like Cora can't have anything. Any temptations must be taken away. So, I don't know, man. That was just crazy to me. And it's Cora went and ate the chocolate just to spite her. And it makes you wonder on some level, does she spite Phoebe too? Because does she blame, she's like, oh, this is all your fault that mom treats me like this. I mean, the question is, what was their relation like? What was her mom like before Phoebe was born, you know? Was she always like that? Or, you know, is it because of Phoebe? I don't know. I'm just curious about that whole dynamic. I mean, with a situation like that, and maybe there's probably a lot more we'll get as the series progresses about why Cora would lie about her parents being dead. I'm very interested to find out about that. Like, I want to meet them present day to find out, like, yo, what's the situation like? What would they say? Hopefully Harry meets with them next episode. But I kind of talked about it earlier, was the whole like Harry thing. Like, the question is, why is Harry asking for the truth? And even like Cora's calling him out, being like, he's like, oh, I'm a detective and everything, you know, I need the truth. And she's like, you're full of shit. And he's like, well, that's something we both have in common. Because the question is, why is he pushing so hard? Every other person's like, no, we don't need the truth, blah, 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 blah. It's an open and shut case. But he's pushing so hard to get the truth. And I'm questioning why. What is pushing him so hard to do that? Like, it has to be something from the past. Once again, like, I think I said this last episode. Don't know whether it's something personal or was it a case that he took personally, whatever the situation may be. I don't know. I'm still kind of having it in my head of maybe it has something to do with that murder that took place like 2 years ago. Maybe that has nothing to do with it. Maybe it does. I don't know. But we also got to look at his personal life this episode. We got introduced to his wife, Faye. I cannot remember the actress's name, and it bugs me so much. I want to say her name might be Karen, but I'm probably completely wrong on that front. But she played Vincent D'Onofrio's partner on Law and Order's Criminal Intent. Like, that's what I know her best from. But she's popped up in other stuff too. But it's like, that's his wife, and we ended up finding out what's the issue there. It seems like the whole like lady, it's not even like a cheating thing. The reason why they're falling apart, it's because she feels invisible. Like, she's like secondary to him, because it's like, while she was getting knee surgery, he literally came back and started messing with his plants and stuff, which it seems like he has some weird plant thing, because he was at his partner's place staying over, and he was out in front of their yard in just his underwear. So it's like, okay, like there's something going on, like his obsession with plants and stuff like that. I mean, we're getting even further into it. It's like, even his partner's joking, calling him the plant whisperer. It's like, what the hell is up with that? Like, what is that whole thing? Why are plants so important to him and everything? But that's his situation with his wife. It was not the whole thing he has with that lady who works at that cafe. That that has never been thrown into the equation. That's just kind of a side thing. But he tries to end it this episode. He's like, it's over. And she's like, well, he's like, I want to make things try and work with Faye. She's like, well, this ain't the first time this happened. But he's like, I want to really give it a try. She's like, well, why'd you come here? He's like, to say it. He's like, to say it to you. She's like, well, you could text me next time. So it's like, the question is why. I can only assume like the reason why he came, because I guess he felt like if he said it through text, he'd be tempted to do it otherwise. Maybe he just wanted to see her one last time or whatever. Try and use that as a means of holding on, because like we ended up finding out from Faye that like they have not had sex in a while, which I mean, we don't know how far Harry's situation with that lady went last episode, where it's like she's stepping on him and kind of telling him to get down on his knees. And so it's like, because she's like, I don't even know what you like anymore. Like, I guess it seems like Harry might be into like kind of being like beaten up a little, or like kind of once again being dominated essentially. So it seems like that might be his thing, and maybe he's too ashamed to tell his wife that's what he's into, because it's like maybe she'll look at him like he's weird or something. I don't know. But I can only assume like maybe he was thinking like, if I say it to you in person, maybe I can pull myself away from you and not be tempted. But I'm like, that's not over. That's going to be another continuous storyline. So I don't know. It was just kind of an interesting development in that front. Another interesting thing too is we found out earlier in the episode, I think that the cop from last episode, I was pointing out like the way she had that look on her eyes with the whole like chorus situation. It seems like her name is Caitlin. Apparently her and Mason know each other because they graduated together. So it's like they've known each other for a while. So it's like, like, is she like in the middle of this in some shape or form? Does she kind of have some kind of connection to this case that we don't know about? Like, I don't know, because the fact is that they threw that element in there. It's not like she's just some random cop. It's like, I felt like they were kind of pointing her out a little bit. And it seems like now we see why, because she has a connection to Mason. So maybe she actually has a connection to Cora as well. But nevertheless, like, she ended up talking to Mason, and she ended up telling him about the whole like possible motive for like Cora attacking Frankie and everything. So, because she wasn't really supposed to and she didn't want to, but she felt like, she needed to give Mason something because he was driving himself crazy. Which, side note, I need to find out who that actress is. I swear she has such a familiar face. Like, I feel like I've seen her before, and it feels like it might have been recent. But what was really interesting, too, was the moment he heard the name JD, and she was like, did that mean something to you? And he was like, nah. She's never talked about a JD or Frankie before, so I was like, but then he ends up talking to Cora later on, he's like, the name JD. He's like, I know a JD because I knew his friends. Who a JD with that exact same truck was like, he the one that got you pregnant. And she's like, it doesn't matter. Kind of once again alluding to the fact that something happened. And then he's like, it does matter because you're talking to the cops about it, and it matters. And it seems like what Mason's side of the story is going to be is taking things in his own hands, because his life is kind of spiraling a little bit too. Not only just because of dealing with this whole situation, but also even at work, he's working at this lady's place and on her house. And then like all of a sudden he overhears a conversation. She's on the phone. It's like, yeah, that's the dude. Yeah, I know him because he's on TV. Like, oh my God, like almost like she's not safe with him or something. Like she's like, it's like, come on, at the very least I guess you're concerned about your safety and stuff. I don't know. It's like, at least have the decency to wait till the dude leaves, because it's like, yeah, I knew they would send someone over. I didn't know it was going to be him. So that kind of sucked. But we do see later on that Mason is talking to one of his friends, and he's like, yo, can you get me in contact with that JD dude? So it does seem like he is. Hopefully he doesn't go to the extent that you would think he is. Like, I'm sure he's probably going to hide his identity, maybe get closer to. His friend did bring up the fact is that, people roll with JD almost like he's kind of a bad guy or something, like, I don't know, like a biker or something. Because the fact is, like, why you want to roll? Ask why you want to meet a dude like JD. Like, he seems like he's trouble already with just that conversation. So hopefully it's not a situation where Mason goes like, into a situation he can't handle. Seems like it might be, because obviously, because the fact of the matter is, at this point in time, we don't know don't know heads or tails of this entire situation. So I'm very curious to see ultimately like how this all plays out. There's aspects little moments that kind of caught my attention too, like finding out from his parents. Like, yeah, Frankie was in a band for a little while. He's so caught up in school and stuff like that, he really didn't have time for it. So he was only in the band did music and stuff for a little while. But it's like, does that have any significance with the song? And let's not forget what we found out last episode. Frankie saw her and he let her go, and it's like, why? Maybe Frankie was there during whatever the situation was with JD. Maybe we'll find out that he lied to his parents about being where he was, or maybe his parents are covering for him, or whatever the case may be. Like the blonde lady, like maybe JD was there with them, met them up at whatever place they met at, and maybe it's like, maybe something happened to her and that started this whole situation of maybe he knew why. I mean, he definitely knew why Cora was attacking him. That's why he didn't fight it. He just accepted it. Maybe he's like, oh, this is what I deserve, and something like that. Or maybe it's like, I don't know, because yeah, there was a lady he had met years ago that kind of ruined his life. And maybe he was talking specifically about the blonde lady that Cora was with. And maybe that situation is what made him decide to change. And maybe that kind of fit alongside with Cora. So I don't know, like so many questions, like a very good episode, so many things developing, and I'm very interested to see how they continue to develop. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.